Hello, today we have Nell Fry from Sodexo. She is sustainability manager, senior manager of sustainability. So thank you for being with us today, Nell.
Happy to be here.
And I want to talk about something that I'm afraid may have gone or lost momentum because just as a whole, I think food service had been taking so many positive steps with doing reusable mugs, reusable straws, and people were really starting to see the impact of single-use plastic and just how bad it is for the environment. And I think especially in like college campus settings, if you're a food service director, you have the support of your university and of course from you guys at Sodexo, and sustainability is something that we don't want to lose momentum with it, in other words. So
hmm
I wondered if you could just kind of give me a little background of where you're at right now with the sustainability issue.
Yeah, so I think there have been a few phases of this. At the beginning of a pandemic, I think there was a lack of information, a lack of data. What kind of safety precautions do you need? Do you need individually wrapped cups? Do you need individually wrapped cutlery? How far do we need to go in order to make sure that people are
Right.
safe? Because that needs to be our number one priority. I think that sustainability is about people, and I think sometimes we lose sight of that really we're trying to maintain a healthy planet for the next generation, the generation after that. It's not about just that tree outside your window
Yeah.
or a particular animal. It's about the entire environment and how it pertains to people.
It's
So
well connected. Yeah, it's not either or. It's not like you're putting
yeah,
the earth before people, or it doesn't have to be
exactly.
that way. And then
Exactly.
in these crazy times, this was something nobody knew how is it spreading, like when it first came
Mhm.
around. So it's like, of course, err on the side of caution, keep people
Exactly.
safe, use disposable stuff.
Yeah. So one approach that we're taking is to be continuously engaging with our health and safety team to understand what are the thresholds that need to be met and what's an overabundance of caution leading to wastefulness.
Mm.
And so we are looking at disposables, looking at reusables and how reusables can be used safely during this. Because I think the reality is that this is a cost problem for a lot of our sites and a lot of food
Okay.
service sites in general. If you've gone from using all plates and cups and reusable items because you had an eat-in environment. I think all you care to eat at in universities or cafes and senior living facilities are perfect examples. They were all eat-in, and now they have this ginormous paper cost that they suddenly have to absorb.
Right,
And
right.
so those places are really important opportunities for us to look at the use of reusable items that are Sodexo managed. So we know they're properly sanitized, they
Okay.
are properly dried, and then they are delivered to these consumers in a safe way.
Right.
Um, and I'm actually really excited about that because reusable to go containers are a white whale. We are trying to figure out how to change consumer behavior to make that an option more widely.
Yeah.
People remembering to bring it back, people being willing to invest in it, understanding how it works is a
Right.
really challenging consumer behavior change we've been trying to drive for a long time. And being able to have students engaging in a program like that at their university campus opens up doors further down the road at their corporate campus, in restaurants, in their neighborhoods or in their cities, where they can actually understand how to partake in these returnable programs, and it's not foreign to them
Right,
anymore.
because they've seen how it's done, and it becomes like kind of we know how to
Yeah,
do this. It's no big deal, and it's the right thing to do, just like we recycle, you know.
yeah. And it's key also for those sites because they can't handle an increase of $13,000 a month in paper costs.
Right, right. And what about compostable materials? This is like a bit of a wild card, but this is something that confuses me because I've had food delivered and it's clearly in a compostable thing, but it's like, do I put this in my recycling? I had heard a long time ago that compostable things are great, but if you don't have the means to do it, if you're not doing it right. So I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that type of packaging.
Yeah, so compostable packaging has variable economic outcomes if not composted. So one pro to them is they are from renewable resources in most cases, corn or other types of biomass that can be used to make them. So that's a
Yeah.
renewable resource. It can be regrown. It's not oil, right?
Okay.
That's good. But if it doesn't go to a compost facility where it's turned back into soil, that just because it's renewable doesn't mean it has a lower carbon footprint.
Right.
So
It
there's
could
a
still be
trade-off
put into
there.
the landfill, in other words.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And so Unfortunately, in the US, we have really variable composting infrastructure. So there are a lot of areas that don't have any composting. There are some areas that have composting, but they will not accept a lot of different compostable materials.
Yeah.
I think, corn plastics, PLAs, are a really good example of that, where they just don't, like, a lot of places don't accept them, because I think we have to remember that these composters are making a product. They're selling soil, and so,
Yeah,
and a
right,
soil
right.
amendment. So they want to have a good outcome at the end of this. They aren't just selling the service of collecting your organic materials. They want to sell
Yeah.
that to farmers to actually grow food. That's how it becomes a circular solution. So I always get frustrated when I receive compostable containers, unless they are backyard compostable, which I
Mm.
do in my own backyard.
Oh,
If I
nice.
can't put it in my own backyard, I have to put it in my landfill bin, because
Right.
my recyclers don't take it here. And
No,
if it was
right.
a recyclable container, I actually could wash it and put it in my recycle bin.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Um, yeah. So I kind of wanted to delve into just the fact that, is Sodexo thinking ahead in terms of, we're going to be with disposable stuff for a while? So what, from your viewpoint, is the very best and smartest way to go about that, as we're seeing what's going to happen in the fall with places reopening, and like, sort of, what's your take on how we can be smarter about disposable stuff?
Well, I think that the first thing is to assess, where can we use reusables first. We have actually put together a guide that goes step by step. It's actually an operational checklist that our operators can use to walk through. Do you have a dishwasher? If you don't have a dishwasher, you can't use reusables. And
No,
you'd be
yeah.
shocked at how many dishwashers have been cut from floor plans as sites do renovation. That's really shocking.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, so a
Is that
lot
in
of
the,
sites,
in the wake? I'm sorry to interrupt. Is that in the wake of coronavirus? You're seeing,
no,
or
it's
just in
way before.
general, they were just like, okay, we're not
Yeah.
going to
Oh,
have the
we don't
space.
have space. Let's just cut the dish room.
That's
It's like the
crazy.
first thing to go, and
Yeah,
which
that's
which
weird.
is frustrating, because it really limits your options. It
Yeah,
forces you to, if you want to go zero waste, or if you want to
right.
eliminate packaging,
Mhm.
landfill packaging waste, you have to go compostable, and you have to hope you have a composter that takes that packaging. Cross your fingers,
Yeah,
and they
right,
don't
right.
stop taking that packaging after a year.
Yeah, that's the way
Um,
to go.
yeah, so what we've done is actually given a list of actions and follow-ups, because this has to be a collaboration between us and the client.
Hmm.
If the client doesn't have a composter that they work with, but there is a composter in the area, we have to work with them to identify that composter and build a relationship. We have to work with them to find the right material types and get them implemented on site, to
Hmm.
get bins installed that actually have the right signage so that
Oh, yeah.
consumers know where to put what. We have to make sure that if we don't do the cleaning services on site, we have to make sure that it's properly taken out of those bins and taken to the right spots on the dock, that
Hmm.
there's enough dock space. So this guide actually walks our operators through how to assess the best material type for their site, with the least carbon impact, and balance that with just operational realities and cost.
Right, right. And I would guess that it's different for each client that you have, obviously,
Yeah.
because I know that I've visited some colleges where they do have that gray water, and there's like, they're doing that slush every day. And that
Mhm.
even is tough for places to
Mhm.
do. Like, you kind of need a devoted person sometimes to take care of that stuff and to know.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
oh
and
yeah.
it has to be, it's not even just client by client, it's actually location by location.
Oh
Um,
yeah, right.
yeah, because it depends on the space that you have available, who you have on site, and what materials are actually coming out of that site. So it's a really complex process, which is why we try to simplify it and create this checklist.
Yeah, and still thinking about not wanting to lose that momentum. Have you found, just anecdotally, that most people are still kind of trying to keep with it, and want to have their commitment to sustainability still be something that's quite important?
I think that I've had a lot of conversations with our clients recently, especially in the corporate services segment, but also universities and schools, around how there's this awareness that we have to prioritize human health, and we have to ensure that what we're serving is safe and
Yeah,
also
rightly
perceived by the
so. That's
consumer.
that's got to be first and foremost.
Yeah, but also I think that there's this challenge of consumer perception, right? That
Okay.
consumers may
Yeah.
perceive things as unsafe that are safe. So we have
Okay.
to kind of challenge that, but also ensure people feel safe when they walk into our facilities. And but my boss actually has to send around this meme. It has, COVID-19 is a little scuba diver, and below that, or like us is the scuba diver. And then there's a shark below that that's COVID-19. And then a larger shark below that that's the economic challenges we have upcoming. And then a larger shark below that that's about to eat everything is climate change.
Oh my
So I
gosh.
think that there's this awareness
Yes.
that
Yeah.
consumers are going to be really activated around this issue. And as soon as we have this infection control, like actually we have this pandemic under control, there's going to be this whiplash into what are you doing about plastics? We want this done yesterday.
Right.
We're
Right.
already kind of in.
Yeah.
1/3 of consumers are, at least last year, 1/3 of consumers were activated and really trying to avoid single-use plastics in their everyday life,
Mm-hmm.
thinking about it when they go to the store, which is huge.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's about to come back full force. And I think that consumers have seen we can shut down the whole country to manage and control a pandemic. Why aren't we doing this for climate change as well? And I think it's going to be a doubling up of the commitments that we've seen before from consumers and the requests we've seen. So there's this understanding that we have this like tidal wave coming behind the management of this pandemic that we have to address. And so a lot of our sites are trying to go, okay, well, how do we balance this stuff? And I think that you may have to switch to disposables in the short term, but you have to have that backup plan longer
Okay.
term.
That makes sense. So, and you kind of have already touched on this, but thinking about just planning for like the next couple months ahead, how is Sodexo's sustainability arm sort of planning, I guess, which is, that's kind of a loaded question, but just sort of like, what are some things that you can share?
Yeah, so the planning really has to do with that work with the health and safety team to reassess some of these guidelines, because we're actually having to go back and find places where guidelines were put out during that moment where there was an absence of data that
Right.
were really stringent and maybe more stringent than we needed. Like, do not use any reusables at all was some messaging that was sent out by different
Sure.
folks. This happened all over the place, right?
Yeah.
Because there was a lack of information about what was safe.
Mm-hmm.
And that wasn't pervasive, but it happened in some pockets. So we have to go back and actually find that stuff, pull it down, create guidance that shows how to do things safely and what to do safely. And then also, I think that we have these sites that really have a cost problem with paper goods. These sites that have been reusable for a long time and suddenly have this really big paper cost. And
It's
so
a
we're
new
really
cost.
focusing on those sites to
Yeah.
help them find alternatives that are more sustainable and reusable, that are safe, and get that implemented. So that's our biggest focus, is the sites that were not using it before and need to get back to that place.
Gotcha. And it seems like just obviously like communication is going to be key. Like you had mentioned the sort of checklist. So I think that must be really good for operators to have something kind of really specifics and like, here's what we're doing as a company. And then you can tailor it to each location.
Exactly. Step 1, step 2, step
Yeah.
3. There's the beginning of the guide outlines the material management hierarchy from the EPA, first reduce, reuse, recycle, essentially.
Mhm.
And then it goes into the requirements for each material type, and do you meet these requirements? So it really does allow them to customize their solution for their client. We've also done a training the last 5 years, I believe. It's called waste management, circular economy training that we provide to our operational teams. We work with our segment heads to identify people that they want to have subject matter expertise in their business. That might be a regional manager or a marketing person or
That's cool.
sustainability professionals. And
Yeah.
it's a 5-part, this is how complex this is. It's a 5-part, hour-and-a-half webinar series with a day and a half in person. So I feel really lucky that we also have these subject matter experts that actually are embedded into our segments already to help with this process.
That's really cool.
Because, yeah, so it has to be a site-by-site process. It is not a checklist. We've made it a checklist as much as possible, but it's a problem-solving activity. You have to go and get some information and figure out what works best for you.
Right. I really like that. I like the fact that it could be anybody. It could be somebody from marketing or, a GM who just has a special interest in that, is like, I want to become an expert. That's super empowering. I think that's great. And then
Yeah.
they have the tools to then say, like, here's what we should be doing. So they're working with the facts with,
Yeah.
with that kind of training. That's cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. And I talked to somebody the other day and they said that actually switching everything to grab and go, there has been a silver lining where there has been less food waste. And that kind of seems logical. That makes sense, because if you're going from an all you care to eat place where people are filling up their thing and then food gets thrown away. So, but in
Yep.
this case, it's like it's portioned out ahead of time. So what do you think about food waste?
Yeah, so well, we're working collaboratively with Refed, James Beard, FDA, Lean Path.
Oh yeah.
Oh, there must be others too. World Wildlife Federation on some guidelines that will be public around how to reopen with excellence and avoid food waste, because there's a couple of things there. First, there's some research that Lean Path has done, who's a global partner of ours,
Yeah.
around food waste measurement, that shows that when your volume decreases, your food waste proportionally increases. It's less dollars, but a higher proportion of your food being wasted because it's less of your dollars, right? It's
That's
easier.
counterintuitive.
I know, right? But it's because there's less people on site. It's a smaller volume,
Oh yeah.
right? Proportion, but it's a larger proportional volume. So as sites have that may have, volumes decreasing, there is a higher risk of food waste, and so we want to make sure that they have the tools they need to address that up front. But yes, when we're talking about, there's kind of pre-consumer or kitchen food waste, right? That's
Mhm.
overproduction, that's
Oh yeah.
over purchasing,
Sure.
et
Yeah.
cetera.
Yeah.
And then there's post-consumer, so a consumer taking too much on their plate and throwing it out,
Hmm.
right? So I
Hmm.
think a lot of the changes we're seeing around grab and go, there aren't going to be buffets probably for a while. You're going to have somebody serving food to people, and so
Yeah.
that's portion controlling.
Yeah.
Absolutely, we're going to see an improvement in consumer food waste, and that's a huge consumer food waste is one of the biggest buckets of food waste that there is. Most of that's groceries in the home, but it certainly is something we can address in restaurants
Oh,
as well.
isn't it though? And I feel so guilty each and every time because whenever I buy bok choy for some reason, I have great plans for it, and then it wilts and it goes bad. So just as
Mhm.
a consumer and a home cook, I see how much I waste, and it drives me crazy. And I really try not to. And it's the
Yeah,
produce. Produce is I don't know. Would you say that's
the
the
challenge.
biggest thing that people waste?
And I think it's the biggest thing that we see wasted as well. Like grains, like rice and pasta, and then produce are the things that are wasted in homes and also in our sites,
Yeah.
because they're the lowest value items, they're the cheapest, right?
Okay.
Um, Dana Gunders has a great book about home kitchens and how to manage food waste. I'd highly recommend it.
Ooh, I'm going to check
Um,
that out. Absolutely.
yeah. So it's like, I don't remember the title of it. I have it somewhere on my bookshelf over here, but I'm not going to search for it. But it's a great book that really outlines how to manage food waste in your kitchen. And one great option for home kitchens, and this is what I did when I stocked up around COVID. I'm one of those people. I was stocking up 2 months ahead of time. I bought frozen vegetables. There's
Yeah.
a higher nutritional density because they're frozen at peak freshness and they don't
Yes.
go bad.
It's
So
true.
yeah, so I try and freeze stuff whenever I can. I also make my own kombucha, so a lot of my fruit that might go bad goes into my kombucha
Oh, I
to
love it.
flavor it. So there's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with
Yeah.
produce that's about to go,
Yeah, I can learn
including
some
stocks.
lessons from you. You're composting at home, making your own
Yeah.
kombucha. That's amazing. Because
Well, I'm really privileged to be able to do that stuff. I have space, and I have
absolutely,
time, and that's an absolute privilege to be able to do that stuff.
very true. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's definitely not something that everybody can do. So do you have the mother of the kombucha? Do you keep that in it's one thing?
Oh yeah, it's real gross looking.
I know
Um,
I'm fixated on the kombucha here.
yeah, no, but it's really, I think people get intimidated by that process, and it's just
Yeah,
incredibly easy and
yeah.
some fermentations are, you have to do it right or it'll go wrong.
But yeah.
Kombucha is really forgiving.
Okay, yeah, maybe that's a
Yeah,
good thing to start with because that's what I always like whenever I want to do something like that. I'm like, oh, botulism. I don't trust myself to, so that might be something that I'm going to try to do.
yeah, it's really, really easy. If you're in Atlanta and you need a mother, let me know. I got them.
Oh,
God, I keep
remember
little jars of them on my fridge to give away to friends. So
that.
happy
Very
to provide
cool.
one.
I like the sound of that. Okay, was there anything else that we wanted to add about sustainability that we should have talked about but didn't? I think we covered
Oh,
everything pretty well.
one
Not
other
everything,
thing I think is
obviously.
really that we are, something that's floated to the top for me in this work we are doing, kind of cross collaboratively around opening with excellence and addressing food waste, is this need for like constant re-education of our operational employees. So including this in training, including this in huddle trainings, and making it part of your culture to like look for these places where we're wasting material, whether that's organic or non-organic, so
Right.
food or plastic wrap, and actually engaging our employees to say, where are you seeing waste and what can we do to address it? Because that's where the best ideas come from, because it's going to be different everywhere. So we really need to be listening to our employees to
Yeah.
understand where the opportunities are.
Yeah, it's the people on the front lines. I definitely
Mhm.
have heard that a lot because they they're seeing it every day, and they can tell you what's going on.
Yeah.
Definitely. Cool. All right. Well, I think that's it for our time, but I wanted to thank you so much for being on the show today, and we're going to stay in touch with you and see how everything develops.
Thanks for having me.